This is
Chat the Great.
Maybe I'm gonna say something that like everyone's thinking, but no one wants to say. But it's like bands come in and they're excited about their music and they're buzzing to like get it out and create. But a lot of the bands that come in also have an issue within the industry, and they're bummed out by it and they're deflated and they're like, this is so messed up in a way. Like the business side of it is it's just so wrong. And it's like a double-edged sword. It's like they do the music because they love it, but then they know they have to suffer for it as well. There's like this I think there's a few bands who are like, oh well, what you on about, like, but you're probably making, like, you're probably getting on every playlist and you're probably making all the money, and not all the money, but like you're doing a lot better. I think there's a big chunk of bands who do this because they love it, but then they really object to certain things in the industry that just don't work for them. And I get it. And then, so I think I've got a lot of experience from touring and things like that, and labels. And I just, whenever a band comes in, I always say, well, what are you guys struggling with? What's happening outside of the music? And that's when it all comes out. And that's when it's like, oh, I'm so bummed out about this and I'm so bummed out about that. And I try to just, like, from my experience, it's like, don't associate the two together. Like, try as much as possible to enjoy the music, and then recognize that the business side, should be dealt with kind of separately. Because when you mix the two together, it like really jades the experience of creativity, and that's really tough.
But it's so hard to do it, Tarek. It's so hard, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you feel like you're doing the best, and you have like this thing, like you're blaming, like, yeah, I did my best, but it's the manager. But I did my best, but it's that the label, it's the guy from the label, it's the PR. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And, it's like, it's so fucking annoying sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You have to like realize, and when you're in a band and you're like, so you're like, this is the biggest tune we've ever done, and this is the best. And it's like, you have to realize that most of the people around you are just, they're just normal human beings like you, but they switch off at 5-6 p.m. They have a passion. Like the PR companies really have passion, and the labels, but I think everyone's overworked in a way. Like, you're only managing your own music. You're not managing 10 other projects. And I have so much respect for like PR companies and radio teams and stuff, because they have to like deal with so many people who are all equally as passionate about their song, and why aren't you doing enough for my song? And I think when I realized that, I felt like a sense of like, oh, like, I don't know, maybe like a sense of like, oh, I like to think that no one is special. I like to think that everyone is equal in that sense. And I think maybe I had to have like a realization, like, oh, maybe my band isn't special, and just because we didn't get this playlist this week.
It was, believe me, your band, like Sprinking, it was special. I can tell you this.
It was special to the fans, and the fans don't see all that middle gray area stuff. Like, they don't need to see all that stuff. They don't, and it doesn't impact their experience, or like, they're still going to consume your album when it comes out, even if it doesn't end up on this and this, XYZ. It's like, it doesn't matter to them. And this is like the thing that used to frustrate me, because I'd be like, why are we delaying this or putting that out then, when we can put it out like in a month, or when we can do this now? It's like, oh, it's just the way it is. It's just like the way that the conveyor belt of releases goes. And
I know,
got to wait, and there's got to be like a 6-week lead up time to a single. And it's like, but in that 6 weeks, I know that like the people working on it are working on loads of other stuff as well, and the likelihood is that it might not get worked that whole 6 weeks. It might get worked for like the last 4 days as a scramble. Like, let's just, oh yeah, I need to still email so and so about you guys, and I need to, like, it's not always like this fairyland of,
it's not just you in this life. That's the truth.
And that's the thing. And I think as a musician, like, it's kind of like being born. Your music is born probably from like a small room on your own, guitar on bed, or synth headphones, laptop, whatever. Like, it's born, and then you have so much time with it where you're like cultivating it, and then you show it to someone, and then but then the whole time it's like your precious baby, and you're like showing it around, and then and after a while, it just gets chaotic, and it's but you
Yeah.
still have that same feeling that you had in your room, but you can't have that when you're trying to also bring people into the fold and bring people into the team. Like you you have to protect it, but you also have to realize like it's not just yours the moment you put it out in the world. It's not just yours when you call a radio team on or a PR team. As much as you want it to be, as much as they say it's yours, like the reality is everyone's overworked, and people will treat it, they'll just grab it off you and use it when it's when they need to. And then yeah, it's interesting, and I think that's something that bands don't always want to talk about in like interviews and stuff, because it's hard and it's not exciting. It's like, when XYZ blog interviews you, you're like, yeah, everything's great, it's going so well, and that's a lot of bands I've worked with, like, who are amazing and amazing music. There's a lot of this similar conversations, which is we're struggling, we don't understand why this is the way it is. And I think one of the problem is is that there is so much money at the top, like in the huge bands. That's like the bread and butter for a lot of big labels, that it kind of doesn't matter.
Of course.
It doesn't matter what's going on below. Like I know bands like Sprinking, we were all like, we had a label. Our label were really good. Island Records were really good to us, especially at our A&R. But I know bands who were signed to other majors who were still having day jobs. Like none of us had day jobs when we got to just after album one's release, maybe a couple months after we'd all kind of just been focusing on the band. But there's just, I don't know, people, I feel like a lot of bands think you get to a certain level and everything is just amazing, but you're always pushing, you're always working. And one thing I remember meeting the Circle Waves guys, because I know a few of them anyway, and I've known a couple of them since university. So I met them outside the Ritz. We were supporting them at the Ritz, and we came in like a little splitter van, and they had the bus and they had everything. And I was like, wow, man, you guys are smashing it. You guys are doing so well, And one of the guys was like, well, we've jumped from a splitter van to a touring bus, but so have our overheads. Like we now have to have like a lighting person and roadies and all this stuff, and it was all, like, so like people think like when the bigger you get, the more money you get, or like the bigger your band is financially, but actually your overheads just go up.